Friday, June 14th, 2019, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today I'm going to talk about a couple of things. First of all, geopolitics. What's going on in the Middle East, specifically with what happened with those two tankers yesterday. And I want to also briefly talk about glintpay.com. That's the card, GlintPay. It's a MasterCard, and it allows you to spend your gold. A lot of people say, oh, yeah, gold is useless. You can't spend it. But this card already in the UK and other countries, they store gold for you, and you can spend the gold. You can have your money also in other currencies, and they are in the US. You can open an account with them, but they haven't launched the card, the MasterCard in the US. It takes a while to get everything sorted out. It took over a year in the UK when they launched last year. And they made an important announcement yesterday as well, a press release, and I'll just go through it right now. It says Glint completes £5 million private placement and welcomes Sprott as strategic investor. And it goes to say, funding allows Glint to embark on U.S. expansion, giving U.S. clients ability to buy, sell, and transact in gold via the Glint MasterCard and app. I've spoken about Glint before. Last year in November, I visited with Glint in London. Ben Davies and Jason Cousins are the two co-founders. Ben Davies, you probably have heard of him. He's been a lot on King World News. He's written a lot about gold. He used to work in the city like me. He used to work for, I think, Greenwich Capital, but in, I think, 2007, opened his own fund, basically a sound money fund, Hind Capital, and now he started this project with GlintPay. I have been using this card, not that much. Does this mean I don't believe in holding your own physical gold? Of course it doesn't, but you need to have some options, and I think it's interesting that you can store this gold, your gold with them. They keep it in a private safe in Zurich, Switzerland, and it's insured. So that's how it works. Am I saying put all your gold with Glint? No, it's always great to have some options. I personally, the majority of my gold still physically held, but it's an interesting concept, GlintPay. So what does it say here before I go on to the geopolitics and the markets this morning? It says glintpay.com, the first mover company that enables physical gold to make instant payments using a debit MasterCard. Today announces the completion of a private placement of a £5 million in London-based parent GlintPay Limited. The financing was led by Sprott, an alternative asset manager and a global leader in precious metals and real asset investments. Approximately $8 billion in assets under management. So it's interesting because one of the guys now who is working for Glint in Colorado in the US, he is one of the viewers of my channel. He is an American who worked in the city, and he contacted me last year to meet Glint, and he started working with them. So that's you know, how we're connected. I will be interviewing Jason Cousins, founder and CEO of Glint, in the beginning of July. They're looking to launch the US card in July. They don't have a date yet. It has taken longer than expected, but you can see that they're serious players, and they've got Sprott, Eric Sprott behind them now, or the Sprott group, I should say. All right. Yesterday, when I made my video, it was quite early, and yeah, I noticed oil had gone up a lot, and I hadn't looked at the news. How can I say? Nothing had come out specifically. About what happened in the Middle East yesterday. It was very early. It was only afterwards that things started coming out. People weren't sure what was happening. So that's why I didn't cover it. It was, 7:30 in London. But today, of course, yes, I have looked at it. What's happened with these two tankers were torpedoed, or some explosions happened to them. One thing I would say about what's happening, what happened, and we can see that the U.S. is already blaming Iran for this. But what I read yesterday was that yesterday the Prime Minister of Japan, Abe, was meeting with the Ayatollah Khamenei. I think he's the supreme leader of Iran. And if you remember, Donald Trump went to Japan a few weeks ago and met with Abe. They went golfing, and they went to watch sumo. And Abe was in Iran trying to open channels for the U.S. and Iran to try to come to some kind of, peaceful agreement. And one of the ships I read that was hit yesterday was a Japanese merchant ship, an oil tanker. So when I read about that, I thought, why would the Iranians, hit a Japanese ship right when, the supreme leader of Iran, Khamenei, is meeting the Prime Minister of Japan? It doesn't make any sense at all. They'd have to be stupid, the Iranians. I don't think Iran wants a war with the United States, because they know they would be probably wiped out. The other thing that is interesting is that the U.S. has been sending, in the last month or 6 weeks, a lot of naval forces to that area, that part of the world. So, I've been seeing a lot of comments about false flag, and I wouldn't put it past them. And the other thing I would say, a few months ago, Secretary of State Pompeo, who was a former head of the CIA, said, and I quote, this is from this article in RT.com, "We lied, we cheated, we stole. Pompeo offers honest, if disturbing, admission about CIA activity." So this is actually what he said. "I was a CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. Like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment," Pompeo told an audience in College Station, Texas, earlier this month, amid self-amused chuckles. So this article is from April. So this was in April. This is what Pompeo said. So should we really believe what Pompeo and the American government is saying about what happened in Iran? I mean, if the mainstream media is really anti-Trump, they should come out and maybe try to expose this. We'll have to see, though. I've got here an article from the FT this morning. It says U.S. blames Iran for Gulf of Oman tanker attacks. Middle East tensions escalate and oil prices rise after Norwegian and Japanese ships hit. Yeah, one of the ships was Norwegian, the other Japanese. So it goes to say Mike Pompeo, the guy who lies and cheats and steals, right? Says Mike Pompeo, U.S. Secretary of State, has blamed Iran for attacks in the Gulf of Oman that severely damaged 2 oil tankers and sparked a surge in crude oil prices. I have to say, this morning crude oil prices are not that much higher than yesterday. Of course, yesterday they went up above 53 WTI, but right now we're at 52.44. So crude is not really it hasn't really. I've seen bigger moves in crude without, an escalation like this. It says here, the top U.S. diplomat and former head of the CIA who lied, right, said the assessment was based on intelligence from the CIA, right? the people who lie and cheat and steal. The weapons used, the expertise needed for such an operation in recent similar Iranian attacks on shipping. He said it was also partly based on the fact that no proxy group's operation in the area had the resources to act with such a high degree of sophistication. Well, I would say the US has a lot of sophistication and forces in the area, but that's for you to decide. So this is where it happened here, this area of the world. You see the Gulf of Oman there. Iran is just on the other side, and you see the shipping lanes going through the Strait of Hormuz. But the other point I'd like to make, if you go to the comment section, this is in the FT. These are people who subscribe to the FT, which I do. I recently decided to subscribe. One of them says, warning, false flag operation. J. Victor 1789. Everybody's crying out false flag with good circumstantial reason, but it could be that the Iranians were counting on this. Well, he's got a different view. Even in the mainstream publications, you see comments to the effect that people are not buying into this. There's another article here. U.S. releases smoking gun video of Iran's Navy handling mine on tanker hull. Well, we've seen smoking gun evidence, at the UN about the weapons of mass destruction, and it from Colin Powell, and it was a complete fabrication and lie. So there's an interesting tweet here that they've put in the story from Max Blumenthal, who is a leftist, but he's got the Gray Zone YouTube channel, and he's done good work in Venezuela. He's actually went there to see what was really going on. And the neocons in the administration tried to bring down Maduro, and they weren't successful. And partly it was, I think, because of Max Blumenthal exposing what's really going on in Venezuela. He tweeted out, and he's done his history, because I've read all about these incidents, even though I might not talk too much about them. He says, remember the Maine? That triggered the Spanish-American War and led to America taking over the Philippines, Cuba, most of Central America. Operation Northwoods, well, that was back in the 60s in the Kennedy administration. They talked about shooting down a plane near Cuba and blaming it on the on Castro. That's public information. Gulf of Tonkin in 1964. We learned years later that there was no incident. It's very similar to this, and it led to the escalation of the Vietnam War. Kuwaiti incubator babies, I remember this. This was an Iranian Iranian girl testified in Congress that the Iraqi, when Iraq invaded Kuwait, they were taking, babies out of incubators, and the babies were dying. And we found out that the girl testifying in Congress was actually the daughter of the ambassador. It was all lies. Saddam's weapons of mass destruction, Gaddafi's soldiers' Viagra spree, last messages from Aleppo, Douma, burning aid on Colombian-Venezuela bridge, and now today's attack in the Gulf of Oman. So, yeah, what do I think? Yeah, I think it's a false flag. Will they get the war they want, the neocons? Maybe, hopefully not. And if they don't get it, I think it's a big defeat. They try to get rid of a regime in Venezuela. They weren't successful. Now they're trying to get rid of a regime or a whole, government in Iran. We'll have to see. What about the markets? I've gone on a little bit today, but there's a lot happening. It's 8:15 a.m. London, so I'm a little later than usual. We've got spot gold actually breaking out. We're making a new high for the year. We're up 1% this morning. We're at 1355.20. The low has been as far down as 1341.70, and the high has been 1358.40. Silver as well is up just under 1%. It is above 15. We're up 12 at 1503. So precious metals look to be breaking out. I guess a lot of people are going to say it's because of what's happening in the Persian Gulf with Iran, or the Gulf of Oman, I'm sorry. I think it's much more than that. Yeah, there's always excuses to be found for market moves. You could argue back in 1979, you know, we had the Iranian hostage crisis, and gold went from 400 in November 1979 all the way up to 887 on January 20th, 1980, if I'm not mistaken. And the Iranian hostage crisis was used as an excuse, but I think it was more a culmination of, you know, a decade of stagflation. You know, almost a decade after Nixon took the dollar off gold. So it's encouraging what's happening to gold right now. Earlier in the week, gold got hit hard. We got back down to like 1319. In pounds as well this morning, gold is breaking out a key resistance at 1,064. We're at 1,070 in sterling. What about the stock markets? Well, they're very quiet. We did have a bit of a positive day yesterday, but the Dow is down 1.5 this morning. The future S&P futures is unchanged. NASDAQ 100 future is down 24 points, or 1/3%. Currencies as well, very steady. Cable 126.70 unchanged. Euros unchanged 112.80. And the dollar is down 0.14% against the yen at 108.23. Unchanged against the yuan, 693.36. And as I said, crude oil is lower from yesterday. WTI is at 52.38, down 20. And I think we got up above around 53.30 yesterday. And Brent is unchanged at 61.01. The bond markets, I think this is where people need to focus, you know, the bond markets and the precious metals. The bond markets are, you know, yesterday with the stock market going up, bond markets actually yields dropped, which is unusual. And today, again, we're seeing the 10-year drop another 2 basis points. We're at 207 or 206.80. That's a recent low. This is telling you more about the economy than anything else. Maybe the Iranian crisis, this crisis, could get people to buy treasuries, but I'm not too sure. We'll have to see. I think people who are jumping the gun, I see a lot of videos out there, oh, there's going to be, US is going to attack Iran. I'm not too sure. We need to be to keep an eye on this. They failed in Venezuela, the neocons. They might fail here in the Persian Gulf. So yeah, the 3-month is at 218. So we're about, let's see, 12 basis points inverted in the yield curve. To sum up, Glint, that's coming to the States very soon. Sprott is behind them as well. And geopolitics, getting very interesting, what's happening in the Persian Gulf. And I think many of you know what it's all about. And that's you know, a subject for another video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. You can also follow me on Twitter, Steemit, and on DTube. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.